Hi, I'm Denise Fortenberry, and I'm here today to talk about our corporate compliance program at Cypress Point Surgical Hospital. The goals of our corporate compliance program are to provide reasonable assurance that Cypress Point complies in all material respects with all federal, state, and local laws and regulations that are applicable to our operations. We satisfy the conditions of participation in health care programs funded by state and federal government and the terms of its other contractual arrangements. This would be the Medicare, Medicaid programs, as well as any other insurance contracts that we may have. We detect and deter criminal conduct or other forms of misconduct by board members, officers, supervisors, employees, medical staff, and contractors that might expose the hospital to significant civil liability. We promote self-auditing and self-policing and provide for, in appropriate circumstances, voluntary disclosure of violations of laws and regulations, and we establish, monitor, and enforce high professional and ethical standards. The elements of our compliance program include the establishment of a written code of conduct and written policies and procedures that govern the actions of all members of the hospital community, the appointment of a chief compliance officer and compliance committee to direct the hospital's compliance efforts. I am currently the chief compliance officer, and the members of our compliance committee include the director of information management, our IT director, the CFO, and the CNO, and myself, and we look at all the compliance issues in the hospital and address those through our committee. We have a process for members of the hospital community to report instances of possible non-compliance with applicable rules without fear of retaliation, and the adoption of procedures to protect the anonymity of the complainants. We have establishment of a system to respond to and promptly report certain arrests, convictions, guilty pleas, or pleas of no contest involving owners, officers, supervisory employees, agents, and affiliates. We use audits or reviews to assess compliance and to assist in the reduction of identified problem areas. And we investigate and correct identified systemic problems, and we develop policies and procedures to address the non-employment or retention of sanctioned individuals. Prior to this change as far as the compliance program in reviewing the non-employment or retention of sanctioned individuals, in the past we did a review of the databases for Medicare as far as sanctioned individuals. We did that on hire, at the time of hire. Now we're required to do it prior to hire, and the offer of employment cannot be made if we find that somebody has been sanctioned through the Medicare program or prevented from participating in any governmental operation. Our compliance program, we have a charter, purpose, scope, and the process of implementation of the program. Code of conduct standards of which hospitals are expected to follow. The compliance program can be found on SharePoint under the quality section. Policies and procedures, expected actions or work-related behaviors of all members of the hospital community. The three specific to the compliance program are RI 085, reporting criminal activity, RI 086, monitoring of criminal activity, and HR 400, hiring and employee management compliance. And those can be found attached to this program so that you can review them in their entirety. Code of conduct, antitrust. All members of the hospital community must comply with applicable antitrust and similar laws which regulate competition. Tax. The hospital will accurately report payments to appropriate taxing authorities and will file all tax and information returns in a manner consistent with applicable laws. Fraud and abuse. Members of the hospital community will refrain from conduct which may violate the fraud and abuse laws. These laws prohibit direct, indirect, or disguised payments in exchange for referral of patients. In another facility, I had a physician that said, you know, Denise, I do a lot of patients here, and I think y'all ought to give me a bonus at the end of the year from the number of patients I bring here. And my response to him was, you know, Doc, I don't look good in orange because that's against the law and I could go to jail. So no, I don't think we're going to be doing that. The other thing is submission of false, fraudulent, or misleading claims to any government entity or third-party payer. Environmental, we as a hospital will manage and operate our business in a manner which respects our environment and conserves natural resources. Discrimination, the hospital believes that the fair and equitable treatment of members of the hospital community, patients, and other persons is critical to fulfilling its vision and goals. It is the policy of the hospital to provide its services without regard to the race, color, religion, sex, ethnic origin, age, or disability of such person, or any classification prohibited by law. It is the policy of Cypress Point to recruit, hire, train, promote, assign, transfer, lay off, recall, and terminate members of the hospital community based on their own ability, achievement, experience, and conduct without regard to race, color, religion, sex, ethnic origin, age, disability, or any other classification prohibited by law. No form of harassment or discrimination on the basis of sex, race, color, disability, age, religion, or ethnic origin, or any other classification prohibited by law will be permitted. Each allegation of harassment or discrimination will be promptly investigated in accordance with applicable human resource policies. Before you report something to human resources, this is what I like to tell staff. What is harassment to one staff member may not be seen as harassment to another staff member. Harassment is something that makes you uncomfortable. So if you feel like somebody is using language that makes you uncomfortable, telling jokes that make you uncomfortable, touching you in a manner that makes you uncomfortable, you first need to let that person know that that makes you uncomfortable so that they can stop that behavior. If the behavior does not stop, or if you feel like your job is in jeopardy, then at that point you would report it to Human Resources for an investigation. But I find that we each have different levels, and the rest of the staff should respect us as individuals. So that is why you need to tell them that they are out of line with you. If they don't cease and desist, then you move forward with it as a form of harassment or discrimination. And once you report it to Human Resources, they are obligated to do a full investigation. Business ethics, honest communication. Cypress Point requires candor, honesty, and cooperation from individuals in the performance of their responsibilities and in communication with both internal and external investigations. When we have surveys, do not give them incorrect information because you think that that's what you're supposed to do. If we're doing something incorrectly, we need to find that out and fix it. So we require honesty in all of our dealings with both internal and external investigations. No member of the hospital community shall make false or misleading statements to any patient, persons, or entity doing business with the hospital about other patients, persons, or entities doing business or competing with the hospital, or about the products or services of the hospital or its competitors. We do not give out information to competitors about what we pay for a product from a different source. So this is very confidential information. There's only a few departments that would even have access to this information, but the same thing, we don't make statements about patients or other persons that do business with our hospital. That we need to maintain that confidentiality. Misappropriation of proprietary information. Members of the hospital community shall not misappropriate confidential or proprietary information belonging to another person or entity, nor utilize any publication, document, computer program, information, or product in violation of a third party's interest in such product. You are responsible to ensure they do not improperly copy for their own use documents, or computer programs in violation of applicable copyright laws or licensing agreements. We cannot bring programs from home and load them onto our work computers because they are not licensed to be there. By the same token, copyrighted information cannot be copied and used in the facility. If it's clearly copyrighted and you do not have permission from the owner of that to make copies, then we are not allowed to make copies. So you just need to be aware of this so that you can protect the facility from violation of those laws. Confidentiality. All members of the hospital shall strive to maintain the confidentiality of patient and other confidential information in accordance with applicable legal and ethical standards. Each member of the hospital community has an obligation to actively protect and safeguard confidential, sensitive, and proprietary information in a manner designed to prevent the unauthorized disclosure of information. This includes patient information, proprietary information, and personnel actions and decisions. And this is actively protect and safeguard. So if you see a schedule that happens to be left inadvertently in the cafeteria that has patient information on it, you need to pick that up and turn it in so it's not in a public area. If you see an order form that has prices on it, you need to pick that up and turn it in so it's not left in a public area. The other thing, personnel actions and decisions. I frequently hear that people report something about another employee that they were doing something wrong and nothing ever happens. Just because you as a staff member do not hear about personnel actions or decisions does not mean that they do not occur. It's the same way we protect our patient information and our vendors' information. We protect the staff information. And that's not something that a manager shares with other staff members as far as counseling or any other personnel actions or decisions that were made. HR doesn't share it, neither do the supervisor. So unless the individual that's involved in the action or decision shares with you, then you will not have that information. Business relationships, gifts and gratuities. Gifts from patients. We are prohibited from soliciting tips, personal gratuities, or gifts from patients, and from accepting monetary tips or gratuities. You may accept gratuities and gifts of a nominal value from a patient. This is referred to your appropriate manager for approval and disclosure. If somebody offers you something other than money, which we do not accept under any circumstance, if they offer you a small token, just check with your supervisor to get approval to do that. We once had a patient's wife that made homemade cold cream for all of the staff members, and that was acceptable. But you need to disclose that to your supervisor just to get their approval. Gifts influencing decision making. We shall not accept gifts, favors, services, entertainment, or other things of value to the extent that decision making or actions affecting the hospital might be influenced. Similarly, the offer or giving of money, services, or other things of value with the expectation of influencing the judgment or decision-making process of any purchaser, supplier, customer, government official, or other persons by the hospital is prohibited. Gifts from existing vendors. Exercise good judgment and discretion in accepting gifts. Consult with the supervisor or the CEO. To the extent possible, the gift should be shared with other co-workers. Sometimes vendors bring in food or small gifts, or a patient's family may bring something. You should share that with all the individuals in your department, because particularly with patients' families, they may not have had direct care for that patient, but they probably did participate in indirect care. Vendor-sponsored entertainment, occasional attendance at a local theater or sporting event or similar entertainment at vendor expense may be accepted. Once again, approval from your supervisor is necessary. Workshops, seminars, and training sessions. Attendance at local vendor-sponsored workshops, seminars and training sessions is permitted. Attendance at vendor expense at out-of-town seminars, workshops, and training sessions is permitted only with the approval of an employee supervisor. And this typically occurs if we're buying a large piece of equipment or some software from a vendor, that they may send some of our employees off to learn how to operate that software or that piece of equipment. Contracting. You may not use insider information for any business activity conducted by or on behalf of the hospital. You must disclose personal relationships and business activities with contractor personnel, which may be construed by an impartial observer as influencing the member's performance or duties. Obtain clarification from management on questionable issues which may arise. My rule of thumb here is, if you related to anybody that we do business with on a contractual basis, I would disclose that to my supervisor so that that would not be construed as influencing your performance of duties. Neither would I ever disclose to them any proprietary information that occurs within the hospital that you gain access to by the virtue of the job that you have within the hospital. You cannot seek to gain any advantage through the improper use of payments, business courtesies, or other inducements. Offering, giving, or soliciting or receiving any form of bribe or other improper payment is prohibited. You cannot seek to gain any advantage through the improper use of payments, business courtesies, or other inducements. Offering, giving, soliciting, or receiving any form of bribe or other improper payment is prohibited. I said that twice because that's very important. Protection of assets. Internal controls. The hospital has established control standards and procedures to ensure that assets are protected and properly used, and that financial records and reports are accurate and reliable. We have an annual accounting firm that comes in and does an audit of all of our business functions so that we can demonstrate that our control standards and procedures are meeting the needs of the facility. Financial reporting. All financial reports, accounting records, expense accounts, timesheets, and other documents must accurately and clearly represent the relevant facts or the true nature of a transaction. Improper or fraudulent accounting, documentation, or financial reporting is contrary to the policy of Cypress Point and may be in violation of applicable laws. For the average staff member, this is most likely going to be affected by their timesheet. We clock in and out. So if you clock in and out, if you get somebody to clock in for you prior to you arriving, that would be fraudulent accounting. By the same token, if you clock out and then still continue to take care of a patient, that's fraudulent accounting too, because the timesheet has to accurately reflect the time that you're there taking care of the patient. And it has two impacts. One, if there's a legal issue with that patient and those records are subpoenaed, they usually subpoena the timesheets as well. So there would be a discrepancy between the time you perhaps charted on a patient and what your timesheet reflects. This is very important. Also on the timesheet, our policy is that if leave the facility for any reason, you have to clock out and clock back in. And this includes going across to the subway to get lunch or going to McDonald's. So if you leave the facility for any reason, you have to clock out and clock back in. If you have any questions about this, please refer to your supervisor for further guidance. Travel and entertainment. Travel and entertainment expenses should be consistent with each member of the staff's job responsibility and the hospital's needs and resources. It is the hospital's policy that a member of the staff should not suffer a financial loss or a financial gain as a result of business or travel and entertainment. Use discretion as if you were spending your own money. I had an employee that I sent to a seminar, a week-long seminar. It was a facilities manager when I worked at another facility, and we gave him a credit card, the corporate credit card, and he spent $100 a night on dinner. This is not as if he was spending his own money. So just be aware that the expense reports are reviewed, and you need to use discretion on what you put on the expense report. The facility does not want you to lose money, but you shouldn't be making money off the facility either. Personal use of hospital assets. No member of the hospital community shall convert assets of the hospital to personal use. All hospital property shall be used and business shall be conducted in a manner designed to further the hospital's interest rather than the personal interest of individual members of the hospital community. You are prohibited from unauthorized use or taking of hospital's equipment, supplies, material, or services. Sometimes things would be thrown away that you may want to use. My rule of thumb there, yet again, is check with your supervisor. I tell people my husband's in love with blue towels. I gave him a case of blue towels that we use in surgery one time for a Christmas present. If they're going to be thrown away, or if it's something that would be thrown away that you want to use, check with your supervisor. As long as they give you permission, then you should be okay. Your personal items, being your purse or backpack or anything you bring to work with you, is subject to being searched at any point in time. We do quarterly inventory to check our supplies and to look for any discrepancies with the amount of charges versus the amount of use. So just be aware of this, that if you need anything, we do allow on occasion some items to be purchased through our materials management department, but that's the way it should be handled, not that you just take something. Please check with your supervisor if you have any questions about this. We have 3 ways to report something that you may be concerned about that is occurring within the hospital. If you have any compliance questions or concerns, there's a compliance hotline, 985-510-6119. We have an email that's compliance@cpsh.org, or you can report through the employee portal of our website, which is the http://cpsh.org forms. This is how the hotline looks. This only comes in my office. I don't pick it up. It's a recorded message. If you want to report something and you're concerned that I might recognize your voice, you can do it through the email or through the employee portal. If you want to know what the results of the investigation are, obviously you would need to leave me your name so that I could follow up with you. We do investigate any and all information we're given or complaints, but unless I know who makes the complaint, I cannot report back to them. The CPSH.org, you go to the employee portal, corporate compliance forms, and this comes up. This is the corporate compliance contact form. You complete it. There's a submit button at the bottom. There's also a place to put your name. You do not have to. You can leave that blank. That is not a required field. When I received this through the mail system, I received this through the mail, as well as if you sent just an email to compliance@cpsh.org. This is how it comes to me, and as you can see, it says from Cypress Point Surgical Hospital. There's no way that I can find out what the source of the email is. I wanted you to see this so that you could know that your anonymity is protected. You just fill this out. We just did this as a test, but obviously you would want to have this completed so we would have all the information we would need to investigate the issue. These are the 3 policies and procedures that you need to review. They should be part of this program. HR 400, RIO 85, and RIO 86 that we talked about earlier on in the program. Yet again, if you have any questions or concerns, you can direct those to me at dfortenberry@cpsh.org, or give me a call. My office number is extension 6165, or you can talk to your supervisor about that. But if you have any questions, concerns, or complaints, please do not hesitate to use one of our methods that we've already talked about to submit those. Thank you. Have a great day.